The first thing I remember was silence. Not the gentle kind that rests after peace, but the hollow kind that follows destruction. The kind that hums in your ears when everything familiar is gone. Earth was gone. Burned. Broken. Forgotten. I was one of the last survivors, one of the last humans, taken aboard the Arkan's vessel. It was cold, vast, and terrifyingly beautiful, its halls alive with silver light and an endless mechanical pulse that felt like the heartbeat of a god. Every wall seemed to breathe, every corridor hummed with alien energy that made my skin crawl. The air smelled of ozone and grief. The guards, towering creatures with silver skin that rippled like liquid metal and eyes as blue as frozen stars, marched beside me in silence. Their steps made no sound on the mirrored floor. I tried to count them, to feel human in the rhythm of numbers. 1, 2, 3, but I lost track somewhere between fear and disbelief. They said nothing. They didn't need to. Their queen wanted to see me. When the door opened, it wasn't like a door at all. It simply melted away. I stepped into her chamber and felt small for the first time in my life. It was a cathedral of light. Crystal walls stretched high above, shimmering like the inside of a diamond. Rivers of energy flowed through the floor, glowing softly beneath transparent panels. At the center stood a throne, not carved, not built, but grown from living light, and upon it sat the queen, Alaris, the alien queen of the Arkan dominion. Her presence hit me like gravity, heavy, impossible to escape. She was luminous, her skin faintly translucent, her veins pulsing with the same silver light that ran through the ship. Her eyes were galaxies swirling with color and motion. She was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. I felt my heart hammering. My knees wanted to bend, but something in me refused. She watched me, silent, cold, unreadable. I expected anger, contempt, maybe curiosity, but instead she tilted her head ever so slightly, as though examining a rare and delicate creature. Then she spoke. "Human," she said softly. Her voice was a melody in a storm, something ancient and almost holy. "Your world burns. Your species fades. Why? Are you smiling?" I blinked. My throat was dry. I didn't even realize I was smiling until I saw my reflection on the floor, a cracked, hollow man with lips curved ever so slightly upward. It wasn't joy. It wasn't madness. It was something deeper, something stubborn. Maybe it was hope, maybe it was denial. I didn't know. But I looked up at her and said, "Because I'm still alive." My voice sounded small, yet it filled the room. "And while I'm alive, Earth still exists, right here." I placed my hand over my chest. In me, she didn't move. Not a blink. Not a breath. Then something flickered in her gaze. A ripple of surprise. Or confusion. Or maybe, just maybe, something human. For the first time, the queen of 1,000 systems seemed uncertain. Her head tilted a little more. The light around her dimmed slightly as though her ship itself was listening. The silence stretched until I almost broke under it. Finally she spoke again, quieter now. "You carry your world within you, even after it has died." "Yes," I said, "because someone has to remember. If I stop smiling, if I stop believing it mattered, then it really will be gone." Her eyes shimmered faintly as though stars had moved inside them. She leaned forward, just slightly, and said, "Strange creatures, humans, you laugh at the edge of extinction." And then she dismissed the guards with emotion so soft I barely saw it. They left without a sound, leaving me alone before her throne. For a heartbeat, neither of us spoke. Two beings, one made of light, one made of flesh, facing each other across the void of everything we'd lost, and that was how it began. The first meeting, a dying man, smiling before an immortal queen, and an immortal queen, asking why. The next day, she summoned me again. The guards came at dawn, if dawn even existed aboard that ship. Time felt strange there. The light never changed. It was always glowing, humming, endless. Yet somehow I knew she had been thinking. When the chamber doors opened, the room was different. Gone were the towering crystals and the cold brilliance. This time I stepped into a place alive with color. Floating gardens suspended in the air, filled with blossoms of light that moved like breathing stars. The air shimmered with luminescent pollen, drifting slowly around us like a dream caught in motion. Alaris stood among them. She wasn't sitting on her throne this time. Her armor of liquid silver had softened into something more like woven light. Her crown pulsed faintly, and for the first time she looked less like a goddess and more like a question that had not yet found its answer. "Your defiance," she said, her voice calm but carrying a quiet weight, "is unusual. Most species kneel. You—" Grin, I managed a small smile. "Maybe it's not defiance," I said. "Maybe it's just how humans survive. When everything falls apart, we laugh. When hope fades, we pretend it doesn't. It's how we fight." Her eyes, endless and shifting, narrowed slightly. "You fight through illusion?" "Through faith," I replied. "Even if it's foolish." She turned away, looking up at one of the suspended gardens. Its petals rotated slowly, shedding light across her features. "Faith," she repeated softly, as though testing the shape of the word on her tongue. "That concept does not exist in our lexicon." "Maybe that's what you're missing," I said. She glanced at me then sharply, but not in anger. There was a glimmer of something else. Curiosity. Maybe even a faint hunger for understanding. "You speak boldly for a prisoner," she murmured. I shrugged. Maybe I'm too tired to be afraid. That earned the smallest twitch of her lips, a movement so subtle I almost thought I imagined it. "Tell me then, human," she said. "What did your kind live for before the end?" I hesitated. So many answers flooded my mind: love, laughter, ambition, the taste of rain. But instead I said we lived for meaning. Even if it was small, even if it only lasted a moment. Her head tilted again. "Meaning," she echoed, the word resonating like an unfamiliar frequency. "Your species sought significance in its own impermanence." "Yes," I said softly. "That's what made it beautiful." For a long moment there was only the sound of the gardens humming. Then she spoke again, quieter this time. "Do humans truly love something they know will die?" "Yes," I said simply. "That's the only kind of love worth having." The silence that followed felt sacred. Her expression flickered, something fragile, like light bending through glass. For the briefest instant I saw conflict cross her face. Perhaps a memory? Perhaps something awakening. When she finally turned back to me, her voice was steadier. "You have given me much to consider." The guards entered then, silent as ever. But before I could be led away, she raised a hand to stop them. "Not to the cells," she said. "Bring him to the gardens. He will stay there." For observation. The word sounded clinical, detached. But her tone, her eyes told a different story. As I was escorted out, I risked one last glance over my shoulder. She was still standing there among the lights, her gaze distant, her expression unreadable, and in that shimmering stillness, I realized something. Alaris, the queen of stars and shadows, was not looking at me anymore. She was looking through me, into a reflection of something she'd long forgotten. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was humanity. Maybe it was the echo of a smile she could no longer remember how to make. Whatever it was, I knew one thing for certain. She was beginning to feel. And for a queen who had ruled galaxies through logic and fear, that feeling was far more dangerous than any weapon humanity had ever built. Days blurred into cycles aboard the Arkan vessel. I had no way to tell time. No sunrise, no sunset, only the eternal pulse of starlight through the ship's translucent hull. Yet I knew something had changed. The air felt different. The guards no longer looked at me as a prisoner, but as something else, something their queen had marked as important. I was no longer in a cell. I lived now among the floating gardens, where petals glowed with shifting colors and alien insects hummed like soft violins. It was beautiful, yes, but it was also a cage made of light. Every wall listened, every plant observed. And above all, she watched. Alaris visited often. At first, she came with the cold curiosity of a scientist. She would stand across from me, her hands clasped behind her back, her crown flickering faintly like a constellation in thought. "Human," she said one evening, "your heart accelerates when you look upon the stars outside this window." "Why?" I smiled faintly. "Because they remind me of home. Every star feels like a promise we once made, to reach them, to belong among them." Her eyes glowed with quiet fascination. "And yet you failed. Your world is gone." "Yes," I said, "but dreams don't die with worlds. They move on, inside those who remember." For a moment her composure faltered. The light in her crown dimmed, then brightened again. Your persistence borders on delusion, she said softly. Maybe, I answered. But sometimes delusion is what keeps us alive. That made her pause. Over the next cycles, our conversations deepened. She asked about things that had nothing to do with conquest or survival. She wanted to understand emotion. What is grief? She asked one day. It's love, I said, that has nowhere left to go. Her lips parted slightly. Love, another concept your kind worships. Explain it. I laughed quietly, not mockingly, but softly, as if explaining something sacred. Love isn't one thing. It's 1,000 small things. The warmth of someone's hand, the sound of laughter after a storm, the pain of losing someone and still being glad you met them. It's everything that reminds us we're not alone. Her gaze didn't waver. Do you mean to say that your species found strength in pain? Yes, I replied, because feeling pain means we still care. Alaris turned away, looking at the cosmic void beyond the crystal walls. Her reflection trembled faintly. My kind abandoned such vulnerabilities long ago, she whispered. We found them. Inefficient. Maybe that's why you conquered the stars, I said quietly, but forgot how to live among them. Her head turned sharply, eyes narrowing, but then something softened. You are either the most foolish being I've ever met, or the bravest. Probably both, I said, grinning. For the first time, she almost smiled. It wasn't perfect, it was hesitant, fractured, but it was there. A spark of warmth in the endless cold. That evening, she ordered the palace lights dimmed. The galaxy outside glittered like diamonds on ink. Alaris remained beside me, silent, watching the void. Do you ever fear, she murmured, that hope itself is an illusion? Of course, I said. But it's the best illusion we've got. She exhaled, a sound halfway between a sigh and a hum. Then softly, almost inaudibly, she said, Your species is a paradox, fragile, and yet unyielding, weak, yet defiant. We're complicated, I admitted, but maybe that's what makes us interesting. Her gaze lingered on me for a long time. Too long. When she finally spoke again, her tone was strange. You make me remember. Things I did not know I'd forgotten. Then remember them, I whispered. She didn't reply. Instead, she turned and left the chamber. But I saw it, the faint tremor in her hands as she walked away, the hesitation in her step, the shimmer in her eyes. The queen of the Arcan Dominion, the empress of logic, perfection, and reason, was beginning to feel something she could neither define nor deny. And as the doors closed behind her, I knew the truth. What had started as an observation was becoming an awakening, an experiment, was turning into emotion. And emotion in the heart of an immortal queen could change the fate of entire galaxies. The first whispers of rebellion began as static, soft, indistinct, almost harmless. But on the Arcan vessel, nothing stayed small for long. Rumors grew like cracks in glass, spreading through the corridors faster than light itself. The queen had changed, they said. The human had infected her mind. I could feel it in the air, the tension sharp and cold like a blade pressed against the throat of peace. The guards who once moved in perfect rhythm now glanced nervously at one another. The once harmonious hum of the ship carried dissonance. Even the stars outside seemed to flicker differently, as though they, too, sensed something monumental shifting. Alaris had begun to dream. Her species did not dream. The Arcans had long abandoned the chaos of imagination, the instability of emotion. They had replaced wonder with precision, replaced heartbeats with algorithms. Yet now their queen, the perfect sovereign, the one who had ruled for centuries with flawless logic, woke in the middle of the night trembling. Her crown dimmed, her eyes wide with something dangerously human. When she came to me the next morning, I saw exhaustion behind her radiance. You brought something to me, she said quietly, standing in the pale glow of the gardens. And now I cannot unsee it. I tilted my head. What did I bring? Her gaze flickered. The concept of self, of choice, of pain. She exhaled slowly, the light within her chest pulsing unevenly. We Arcans have lived for centuries without asking why. We simply exist to rule, to preserve. But now I find myself questioning everything. Tell me, human, is this corruption? I shook my head gently. No, Your Majesty. That's being alive. Her eyes narrowed, almost pleading. Alive, she repeated. The word feels heavy, Because it means something, I said softly. Because it's supposed to. She looked away then, her gaze fixed on the stars outside the glass walls. My council believes I am weakening, she said. That emotion is a virus. Maybe it is, I said with a faint smile. But some viruses bring evolution. That made her pause. That day she didn't send me back to my quarters. Instead, she walked beside me through her palace, a labyrinth of crystal bridges suspended above seas of light. Wherever we went, Arkans stopped and stared, murmuring among themselves. I could feel their unease. The human walking beside their queen was not a prisoner anymore. He was something far more dangerous, a symbol. We stopped before a massive viewing dome showing the twin suns of her home system. Their light rippled across her face, making her look less like a ruler and more like a woman standing between two worlds. Do you miss your Earth? She asked suddenly. Every second, I said. She nodded slowly. And yet you do not despair. I can't, I answered. Despair is just hope's shadow. Where there's one, the other's still there. Her lips parted slightly. She seemed to want to reply but couldn't. The silence between us grew thick, filled with unspoken things. That night the council demanded an audience. They accused her of sentiment, of negligence, of treason to the Arkan way. This human has twisted your mind, my queen, one of them hissed. You were the light of perfection. Now you dim with weakness. Elleris rose slowly from her throne. Her crown flared like a sunrise. Weakness? She repeated, her voice echoing through the chamber. If feeling empathy is weakness, then perhaps your strength is nothing but emptiness in disguise. Gasps filled the hall. The council stood stunned. No ruler of the Arkans had ever spoken those words aloud. Compassion was forbidden. That night the stars outside the vessel burned red. Storms of plasma raged across distant nebulae, and in her private quarters Elleris stood at her window, her reflection trembling as if the glass itself doubted her identity. I found her there. Without turning, she said, They will come for me soon. For both of us. Then let them. I said softly. She turned finally, her eyes glistening with starlight. You are not afraid? Of dying? I smiled faintly. No humans die. That's our one promise we always keep. Her expression wavered. And yet you still smile. Because, I said, taking a slow breath, some things are worth losing everything for. For the first time, she didn't argue. She didn't reason. She simply closed her eyes, and for the briefest heartbeat, I thought I saw her humanity shining through the cracks in her perfection. The Queen of the Arkans was no longer just a ruler. She was a storm, caught between logic and love, between immortality and the fragile heartbeat of something she didn't yet have a name for. And that storm was about to change the stars themselves. The war began with silence, no warning, no declaration, just the sudden shudder of the stars as fleets emerged from hyperspace. Their hulls black against the nebula's glow. The Arkan Council had made its choice. The Queen had been deemed compromised, unfit to rule. And the human, the corrupting anomaly, was to be erased. The alarms blared through the vessel like a chorus of dying angels. I stood in the observation deck as energy bolts split the void, turning the stars into streaks of fire. Ships moved like shards of glass across the horizon. For all their precision, for all their logic, the Arkans were now waging a war of emotion, a war born of fear. Elleris appeared before me, radiant even amid chaos. Her crown dimmed to a faint glow. Her armor of light shimmered like liquid silver under strain. Yet her eyes, those swirling galaxies, were steady. They're coming, I said quietly. I know, she replied. They mean to end what we began. I nodded slowly. Then let's make sure it was worth beginning. For a heartbeat, something unspoken passed between us. No throne, no chains, no titles, just two beings standing on the edge of extinction. She raised her hand and the ship obeyed her thought. Shields flared, cannons roared, but she gave no command to destroy. Instead, her orders came like whispers to the fleet. Protect. Do not annihilate, her generals stared in disbelief. Mercy, my queen? One of them shouted over the comm link. They will not return it. Then they will learn from our example, she said. For the first time in our history, we will not answer death with death. Outside, the first wave struck. Explosions rippled across the void like supernovas in miniature. The air trembled. The ship's gardens shook, petals scattering like embers in a storm. I grabbed a railing to steady myself as the floor vibrated beneath my feet. "They won't stop," I said. "They'll tear your empire apart." She turned to me. "Then let them. Better a broken empire than a hollow one." The ship rocked violently. Sparks cascaded from the ceiling. I fell to my knees, pain lancing up my side. Alaris reached out, hesitant at first, then steady, and lifted me with surprising gentleness. Her touch was cold, yet it pulsed faintly, almost like a heartbeat. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly. I smiled, despite the ache. "You said I was your observer. Guess I'm just doing my job." Her lips quirked faintly, half amusement, half sorrow. "You always find a reason to smile," she whispered. I looked at her then, really looked at her, the immortal queen, the conqueror of 1,000 worlds, and for a moment, she looked human. "Maybe," I said. "You gave me a better one." The ship jolted again. This time, the blast tore through the outer hull. A cascade of alarms erupted. The control panels burned with warnings in alien script. Through the glass, I could see the enemy fleet closing in, endless, unrelenting. Alaris turned to her command console, light radiating from her hands. Her crown flared to full brilliance. Her voice, when she spoke, filled every channel. "People of Arkan," she declared. "You call me fallen because I feel. You call me weak because I dream. But I say, if compassion is weakness, then let it consume us all. For no empire built on fear can ever last." Her voice trembled the stars themselves. Her own guards, once loyal to the council, hesitated. Then one by one they knelt. The ripple spread through the ship like dawn breaking through night. But victory was not without cost. Another explosion rocked the vessel, this one close, too close. The deck split beneath me. Fire and light tore through the air. I hit the floor hard, blood warm on my palm. "Human," I heard her call. Her voice, once a command, now sounded like desperation. I looked up through the smoke and saw her running toward me. Her armor fractured, her crown cracked. She knelt beside me, her light flickering. "Why?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why are you still smiling?" I coughed, tasting iron and ozone. "Because," I said through the pain, "you finally understand." For a long moment she just stared at me. Then tears, bright as molten stars, spilled from her eyes. They floated upward, glowing like tiny suns. Alaris rose slowly, her gaze sweeping across the chaos outside. And then, in a voice that carried through every ship, every soldier, every heart, she said 3 words that ended a war. "Cease. Alt. Fire." The galaxy fell silent, no engines, no screams. Just the quiet hum of peace returning to a universe that had forgotten what it felt like. As the last echoes of battle faded, Alaris sank to her knees beside me. I could barely hear her whisper, "You changed the stars, human," with nothing but a smile. I wanted to answer, but the world was fading. All I could do was smile one last time as the light around us dimmed into the first dawn of something new. When I awoke, I thought I was dead. The world around me shimmered with light, soft, golden, unbroken. The air was still. No alarms, no war cries, just the faint hum of a living ship breathing gently in peace. I blinked and tried to move. My body ached like it had been carved from glass and reassembled by trembling hands. Then I saw her, Alaris. She was sitting beside me on the floor, her once brilliant armor dimmed, her crown lying cracked beside her like a fallen star. The glow that had once defined her form was faint now, like twilight holding on after the sun has set. But she was alive. Her eyes lifted the moment mine opened, and for the first time there was no command in them, only relief. "You're awake," she whispered, her voice trembled. Not the voice of a ruler, not even a warrior, just a woman who'd nearly lost something she didn't yet understand how to name. "How long?" I managed, my throat rough as ash. 3 of your days," she said softly. "You were caught in the reactor blast. Your body, fragile as it is, refused to yield. The medic said it was impossible," I chuckled weakly. "Humans do that sometimes. We survive what we shouldn't." Her lips twitched, almost a smile. "Yes," she said quietly. "You smile when you shouldn't. You survive when you shouldn't. You feel when no logic demands it." I turned my head slowly toward the observation glass. The stars beyond looked different, calmer. There were no fleets, no fire. Only the gentle drift of vessels returning home. "Did they listen?" I asked. She nodded. "They did. Your words, my choice. It stopped them. The council is fractured, but not gone. They've agreed to rebuild. No more planetary cleansing. No more forced obedience. The war is over. I let out a long, shaky breath. So this is peace? Hilaris looked out at the stars. I do not know, she said. But it's the closest we've ever come. Silence filled the room, gentle, almost sacred. Then she spoke again, quieter now. When I first saw you, I thought you were broken, a relic of a doomed race. I couldn't understand your defiance, your smiles, your laughter in pain. Now I see it wasn't defiance. What was it then? I asked. Faith, she whispered. You believed in something I couldn't measure, something I couldn't see. Her words lingered in the air like a fragile melody. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The ship hummed around us, tending to its own slow recovery. Through the glass, a planet turned below, lush and untouched. It wasn't Earth, but something about it stirred the same ache in my chest. Hilaris followed my gaze. That world, she said softly, was meant to be terraformed for Arkan colonists. I've decided it will be neutral ground. A place where no one rules, no one conquers. A beginning, I murmured. Yes, she said. A beginning. She stood slowly, her movements still elegant despite exhaustion. Then she extended her hand to me, not the hand of a queen to her subject, but one soul to another. I hesitated, then took it. Her touch was warmer now, almost alive. As she helped me to my feet, the doors to the chamber opened. Dozens of Arkans stood there, soldiers, scientists, attendants. Their gazes were no longer cold. Some even smiled, awkwardly imitating mine. Hilaris looked at them, then at me, and spoke to her people. This human, she said, her voice clear but gentle, showed me that hope is not a weakness. It is the heartbeat of every living being. From this day forward, our empire will not fear it. We will learn from it. The hall filled with light as every Arkan bowed. Not to her command, but to her truth. I felt something tighten in my chest. Pride, sorrow, awe. When the crowd dispersed, Hilaris turned back to me. You could stay, she said quietly. Help us learn. I looked again at the stars, the endless sea that had taken everything from me and then somehow given something back. And if I stay, I asked, what am I then? A prisoner? A teacher? Her gaze softened. A bridge. The word hung between us, simple yet heavier than any crown. For a moment I said nothing. Then I smiled again, small, tired but real. Hilaris tilted her head slightly, studying me the way she had that first day. Still smiling, she murmured. Still human, I replied. She looked away, but I caught the faintest shimmer of a smile on her own lips. And as the ship slowly drifted toward the dawn of a new world, the Queen of Stars and the last son of Earth stood side by side, no longer enemies, no longer strangers, just two beings learning how to begin again. The galaxy had gone quiet. But this time, it wasn't the silence of death. It was the silence before life begins again. The morning light touched the alien horizon like a promise. We called the new world Ilarian, a fusion of her name and mine. A place neither Earth nor Arkan, but something born between. It took months for the dust of war to settle, and in that quiet rebuilding, I saw something wondrous. An empire learning how to breathe. The Arkans had once believed themselves perfect, unchanging, unfeeling, eternal. But now they laughed, stumbled, tried. They learned art from my memories, music from my broken voice, and warmth from the simplest thing of all, touch. The queen no longer ruled from a throne of light, but walked among her people. She still wore her crown, though now it was repaired with gold, its fractures shining brighter than before. She said they reminded her not of failure, but of becoming. I spent my days helping where I could. Planting crops, teaching words, watching the sunrise from alien soil that somehow felt like home. Every morning I smiled. It became a kind of ritual. The Arkans began to call it the dawn expression. To them, a smile was not instinct, it was a gift learned, a light chosen, and Hilaris, she watched me with that same unreadable fascination, though now it was gentler. One evening, as twin moons rose above the fields of glass-leafed trees, she approached quietly. Her movements were soft, unguarded. The air shimmered faintly around her, a faint echo of her former power, restrained but serene. You've rebuilt more than I imagined, she said, Her voice like starlight made sound. I smiled. We rebuilt together, she tilted her head. Do you still dream of Earth? Every night, I admitted, but not with sadness anymore. It's not gone, it just lives differently now. Her eyes glowed faintly. Inside you, I nodded. And now maybe inside them too. Silence stretched between us, not empty but full. The kind of silence where words aren't needed. The kind where souls understand more than mouths ever could. Then she said something I hadn't expected. When I first met you, she began slowly, I thought your smile was defiance. Then I thought it was faith. But now, she paused, looking at me like one might look at the first sunrise after endless night. Now I think it is love. The words froze in the air. Not romantic, not possession, but something vast, cosmic. A love that existed simply because existence deserved it. I looked up at her. The queen of stars, the once perfect being who had learned to feel. And for a long moment, I couldn't speak. Finally, I said softly, maybe that's what humanity was always meant to teach. She smiled then, really smiled. Awkwardly at first, then wider until the galaxies in her eyes seemed to shimmer brighter. The sight almost hurt. The next day came quietly. Too quietly. The council remnants, fearful of her corruption, launched a final act of desperation, an autonomous fleet that moved without command or conscience. It came for the planet guided by logic too blind to see what it sought to destroy. We had no time, no weapons, no fleets, only Alaris. She stood at the heart of the city, light gathering around her, wings of energy unfolding once more. I ran to her side, shouting through the rising wind. You can't. Your energy core, it's still fractured. You'll die! She looked at me calm and radiant. Perhaps. But not all endings are lost, the light intensified. The sky split into ribbons of fire. The fleet descended like judgment itself. And in that final moment, Alaris turned to me one last time. Human, she said softly. Tell me again, why do you smile? I felt tears blur my vision. My throat ached. I forced a grin, trembling, broken but true. Because you learned to. She closed her eyes and smiled back. The explosion that followed was not sound, it was light. Endless, pure, blinding light. It swept through the heavens, unraveling the attacking fleet like dust before dawn. Then it was gone. When the brilliance faded, the sky was calm again. No fire, no death, only starlight. They found me later, kneeling at the edge of the crater where she had stood. There was nothing left of her, no body, no crown. Only a faint shimmer in the air and one glowing petal from the Arkan Gardens pulsing softly with golden light. I picked it up, held it close, and smiled. Years passed. The Arkans built monuments not of stone but of memory. The people of Alarion flourished, and her story, our story, was told not as legend but as truth. The queen who loved beyond reason. The human who smiled through ruin, sometimes. At night, when the stars shimmer just right, I see a faint glow among them like a crown of light watching over this new world. And when I see it, I smile again, because somewhere out there beyond the reach of any empire, she's smiling too, and the universe for once feels alive.